ancient astronauts meet modern UFOs. Will Hart reports, as an alternative to these 19th century mechanisms, we've considered directed panspermia, the theory that organisms were deliberately transmitted to the Earth by intelligent beings on other planets, and we conclude that it is possible that life reached the Earth in this way, end quote. Nobel laureate Sir Francis Crick and biochemist Leslie Orgel. Quote, in the early 1970s, while Eric von Daniken was presenting the material to back up his ancient astronauts thesis in such books as Chariots of the Gods, another virtuality, as yet unknown theory, was being presented by several world-renowned scientists. The above scientists first proposed their novel theory on a paper presented in 1973. They gave it the name Directed-Panspermia because the ancient Greek philosopher Anaxagoras first presented the idea that life on Earth arrived here from space. He called his theory panspermia, which simply means seeds everywhere. Anaxagoras proposed that the seeds of life were existent throughout the universe and simply landed on planets now and then. Crick and Orgel took that notion a giant step further by positing that an advanced race directed the seeding operation on Earth. Sir Francis Crick was not a lightweight scientist who could be dismissed readily. In fact, the noted microbiologist received Nobel Prize for being the co-discoverer of the DNA molecule in the early 1950s. His credentials were unimpeachable. The same is true for biochemist Leslie Orgel, who is credited with having discovered the RNA world. In their paper, they argued that the first organisms that appeared on Earth were too complex to have originated on the planet in such a short time. This argument was later picked up by the intelligent design theorists. The pair showed that Darwin's spontaneous generation concept had been debunked by Louis Pasteur and other scientists in the 19th. Simply put out, Darwinism cannot be used to explain how life emerged on Earth. Not only had there been too little time for chance-driven process like evolution to have produced life, the pair said it is a little surprising that organisms with several different codes do not coexist. The universality of the code follows naturally from an effective theory of the origins. Life on Earth would represent a clone derived from a single extraterrestrial organism. In other words, if chance events produce the largely uniform DNA code, how could it have occurred with such a perfection that a one-time through basis? Why had nature not failed at least once or twice before getting it right? But that is not the way life emerged and proceeded. The DNA code appears to have arrived on Earth in a fully tested and preformed basis. Now, Crick and Orgel also predicted that if their theory were correct, that many Earth-like planets should exist in the universe. This prediction was made long before the Kepler telescope began century reporting the existence of Earth-like planets circling suns similar to ours, which began several years ago and continue today. They wrote that in the galaxy many stars, a size not dissimilar to our sun, and planets exist on a fair fraction of which temperatures are suitable for a form of life, based on carbon chemistry in liquid water as ours is. In fact, there is no reason to assume that the Earth is exceptional, and the majority of modern astronomers do not make that assumption. Most agree that intelligent life exists out there somewhere, but the catch is that they do not believe that any advanced civilization has ever contacted or arrived on Earth. Even though Crick and Orgel argued that in theory, quote, if we are capable of infecting an as yet lifeless extrasolar planet, then given that the time was available, another technological society might well have infected our planet when it was still lifeless, end quote. They too made the assumption that there was no viable evidence that any civilization had actually visited the Earth. Nonetheless, von Daniken was igniting the public's imagination by presenting a vast body of evidence concerning history's mysteries. Suddenly, the public was made aware of ancient sites and artifacts which historians could not simply explain away. It appears that Crick and Orgel, along with their peers, were making the same assumptions that physicist Enrico Fermi did in the 1950s. After studying the problem of advanced ET civilizations, he concluded that there was little doubt they existed, but there was no evidence that they ever had come to Earth. That theorem was dubbed the Fermi paradox. The fatal flaw, which none of the scientists, including Crick and Orgel, that followed Fermi failed to consider, was that he never actually studied the body of evidence that does argue for ET visitation. The late astronomer, Carl Sagan, was actually arguing for such scientific investigations. That, in fact, is an unforgivable breach of scientific protocol. If a scientist makes an assertion, it's incumbent upon him or her to present the case for or against it. For example, Fermi never examined the Great Pyramid, which the ancient Egyptians could not have built because they lacked the tools and sophisticated techniques to build a 48-story stone structure out of millions of precision-cut stones. No truly scientific body has conducted an investigation of that structure to see if the orthodox theories of historians hold water or not. Lacking such an examination, it's impossible to back up the claims that Fermi and colleagues have made and continue to make to this day. As shown, their position is untenable by their own standards of evidence. In fact, Crick and Orgel showed that an advanced civilization could have had ample time to evolve on a distant planet and still have sent an unmanned craft to Earth. While the pair successfully presented a valid theory for how life emerged on Earth, they nonetheless failed to realize that there was plenty of evidence showing that an advanced civilization had actually arrived on Earth in person as well. Nevertheless, von Daniken and the late Zecharia Sitchin were presenting that evidence en masse in extended book series. Enter the modern UFO phenomenon. And now we have to include the modern era of so-called UFO sightings and encounters into the mix. It's odd that the ancient astronaut theorists and the investigators of the modern UFO era have thus far failed to join forces and compare notes. In fact, it would appear that the UFO phenomenon forms a continuum that goes back into humanity's most ancient prehistory. Any educated, informed, thinking person knows that no ancient human civilization could do what we still cannot achieve today, and that it is to build the Great Pyramid. It is a stupid, ridiculous, and insulting premise that historians continue to proffer in spite of their complete failure to produce sufficient evidence to back up their claims. But someone did build the Great Pyramid at some remote time and with technology that was sophisticated enough to succeed. That is a fact. So if no ancient human civilization built it, then who is left? Of course, only ancient astronauts, ostensibly, Crick's and Orgel's advanced ET civilization, which even they failed to see, not only sent unmanned craft but full-blown spaceships that landed on Earth, and that is who built it. The Egyptians never claimed that they built the pyramids, and no mummy has ever been found in the 103 large pyramids that were constructed. In fact, no ancient civilization took credit for having created civilization. They all agreed that gods, quote-unquote, arrived from the heavens and gave them the arts, tools, and principles of advanced society. Can we, at this late date, really believe the fairy tale told in school books that our ancestors simply marched out of the wilderness and tossed up gigantic stone structures while harnessing the largest rivers in the world? Where did the knowledge of the genetic manipulation of seeds and animals genes come from? Where is there proof they harnessed similar smaller rivers and created diversion dams prior to controlling the Nile and the Tigris-Euphrates rivers? Why did ancient Egypt lack cities commensurate with the immense, sophisticated temples and pyramids they allegedly constructed? Are not cities one of the cornerstones of civilization? But no such cities have ever been found. Those amazing spacecraft that have been soaring through our skies since the dawn of the nuclear age may be delivering a message. You are not alone, and you do not own this planet, quote unquote. We may be getting a wake-up call, but are our leaders and scientists paying attention? There are thousands of well-documented cases that prove that UFOs exist and are not of this earth. These reports have been filed by pilots, military personnel, on-duty policemen, and even scientists. Things have advanced so rapidly since 1972 that our space scientists already have plans that detail how humans will one day be terraforming another planet, Mars perhaps. There is nothing extravagant or unscientific about the ancient astronaut theory or the visitation of ETs in our skies today. Now consider this possibility. Our leaders and scientists already know all of this and more, but you and I are being kept in the dark about what NASA archaeologists and geneticists have actually discovered. And this is on SoulAsk. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.